Hello and welcome to the GLHF YouTube channel, and today is a very special day because we're finally able to talk about the brand new Elden Ring expansion, Shadow of the Erdtree. This is the big expansion to 2022's Game of the Year for most people. I don't know what other games released in 2022 anymore. And we've both been playing it, me and Kirk and Kean. How you doing?
Wiggly one.
Wiggly one indeed. I feel like you've put a bit more time into it than I have. But we're roughly at the same place in the game regardless. So talk to me, how's your experience been?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I think this. I was very surprised by how much there is here, because obviously we've played other From Software expansions. They're usually pretty expansive, but not like this. This is almost like a mini other Elden Ring. You know, like a 1.5 version or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's another open world area, but it's smaller. They say it's the size of Limgrave, but I'd say in terms of content, no way. Like landmass, maybe, but content, no, not a chance. There's like multiple optional bosses, loads of main bosses, like secret areas, new items, new weapons, and it's got that same sense of discovery as the main, but like in a more dense way. It's almost like you come to an open area and there's three paths. You can go down all three, but you go down one, and then that's got three paths coming off it. And you're like, oh, maybe I'll go back to this one just because that's probably a side area, and that's got two more paths coming off it. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna have to commit and try and remember all this and come back. It got to the point where I was leaving pins at like crossroads and stuff, so I could remember to go back to a place and check it out later on.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to keep in your head, it's unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. I found myself doing exactly the same thing. I tried to keep a mental map. I didn't put the pins down. I was like, okay, path here, path here. I'm going to go down this one, and I'm going to remember to come back. And I feel like along the way, there'd be 2, 3, 4 more alternate paths. I'm like, I gotta remember all of those.
Yeah.
And I ended up multiple times just starting back at whatever grace it was and just retracing that path and like, oh, right, the right. And then just doing it again, like, oh yeah, this one, you know?
So you should have stuck pins down, mate.
Maybe I should have.
I didn't start doing it until later on, but I was doing the same method as you early, and then I was like, look, this is getting too much. I can't even think about my children anymore. There's no more brain capacity for real life. I need to get some of this out of my brain, because I was thinking about it when I wasn't playing it, and when I was playing it, I was thinking about it. And I haven't eaten in 4 days. No, I have.
It does feel like that, though. I do feel... I was in an optional, like, comatose state playing the game. Didn't move, was just frozen in place. And I couldn't pull myself away from it. I looked at the clock and I was like, okay, it's way too late. I should have gone to bed a while ago, etc., etc. I don't feel like that happened since Dragon's Dogma 2, and even then, it didn't hit me quite as hard as it has now. Exploring the world just really sucks me in. And you said in your review that I read that like you just see things on the horizon. It's like you're just cross-referencing the map, cross-referencing the paths you know, the sites of grace you know, and trying to like find ways there. And I don't know, I found that so satisfying. And again, don't get that in very many games where I feel like I'm doing that.
It's almost like a cartography simulator, right? Because the map, it looks simple when you look at it, but like you zoom in and you can, you know, when there's them little jump down bits, you can see like little toes sticking out of the landscape, or you see like a bridge, like, or something like, you know, a straight line somewhere, and you're like, oh, that must be a pathway to get to the higher point or whatever. But it's so masterful how you can come to, like, you can crest a hill from so many different angles in this game, and it doesn't matter which way you come at it from, that it always frames the landmark perfectly. And then you look at that landmark and you actually look at the cliff edge and you're looking for a way up. You're looking for how it like snakes down the side of a chasm or something. And yeah, I don't think any other game's done it to this effect. Maybe Breath of the Wild a little bit, but you know, that game you can fly, so it's not so much of a task to get to places. With this, you've got to actually look at how the landscape fits together. And it does that without it feeling like levelly, if that makes sense. It feels like an actual world, even though it's so bizarre. Like there's floating islands and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like that at the time. Like it feels like it's natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I feel like a lot of people were worried before Elden Ring released that like how would the traditional Souls formula, which is like typically maze-like fit in like an open world setting, and of course they solved that with like the smaller legacy dungeons. And I feel like the Breath of the Wild comparison is pretty good because like obviously Elden Ring has more limited movement than Breath of the Wild, but I still feel like there is that same aspect of like picking a location, looking out at the landscape, and like figuring out, okay, with my current mobility options, I can get to here, here, here. How do I get to there? You know, it definitely has a similar vibe, except it's on a grander scale
Yeah.
than previous games, but it still has that. It evokes both the earlier Souls games on a bigger scale, but also there's like a more explorative Zelda games. It's super super interesting, and we haven't even started talking about like the bosses or anything.
Before we do go on to the combat and bosses, I do want to say, like, only a small complaint. I still think the game's incredible, and it didn't detract from my experience at all. But creating such a large play space has obviously created some issues for From Software. Like, there were a couple of moments where I found places that didn't have collision, and I was just walking through the floor, or you think you're on the way to a secret and you can jump in this game, which you can't. You can jump to an extent in the Souls games, but not like this, right? You can't just jump upwards in the Souls games. You can jump forward, right,
Yeah.
to clear gaps. But in this, you can jump up. So sometimes I was like jumping my way up like these concrete slabs, thinking, oh, there might be an item behind. I got behind and I was trapped behind it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's no way out. But obviously, you've got fast travel, so you can just zoom to a grave site. So it's not like game breaking by any means. It's just, it speaks to how this wider scope creates more development challenges, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I as I've already basically said, I love exploring the world, but I was speaking to you throughout playing it, and I had a few roadblocks where I was like, I don't even know where I'm supposed to go at this point, and it was pretty often a case of you just didn't turn left at this one place.
Yeah.
Exactly the same experience I had in Dark Souls 3, funnily enough.
It's quite funny because that space you were trying to get to yesterday that I was guiding you to, the way I managed to get you there is I couldn't even remember how I got there. That's how complicated the world is. And what I did is I went to various grave sites in that spot that you wanted to go to and just tried to backtrack and like reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
And then just found this random cave that's not on the map, or if you look at the map even really hard, you wouldn't know it's there. And that was how you got to it. But
yeah, that was the most confusing one for me because I feel like most of the places in this game thus far, it kind of feels like, oh, if I dig around in this area, surely there will be a path leading to the area behind it. It feels quite natural like that. But in that one, I was like in all of the areas directly above it looking for a way down, and there wasn't one, and I had to actually go to a much earlier open area to find one cave, which, yeah.
It was way north of it as well, right?
Yeah.
It's not even near it on the map, really.
No, and it is the only way down, only way there. And so easily missed. And if I wasn't staring at the map saying, where is that area, how do I get there, I wouldn't have even asked you.
Yeah, and I mean, we say that's the only way down, but there might actually be another way because there's them like jump streams you can get as well, right? You break the little cairn stones and you unlock them. There might be one of them knocking about somewhere that we haven't found,
Yeah.
But that's the thing is I don't feel like I've found everything in this world, and I've put 40 hours into it, I'd say. So yeah, I mean, people are getting their money's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm struggling to piece together everything. It's funny how I still feel like there's like missing threads. Like I'm like, I must have missed something in that one church, or I must have missed an item over here, because like some places are so conspicuous. It's like, how come I haven't found anything here? And then other places it seems so busy, and then it's like there's too much. I don't know.
Well, when I went to find that space for you, I found another catacomb that I'd missed just while trying to find the path for you. And that had a cookbook in it and another boss battle.
Yeah.
And I just wouldn't have found that if I hadn't gone looking for you. And that was an area I felt I'd thoroughly explored. So just when you do think you've thoroughly explored, you probably haven't.
Yeah.
So,
and there's two catacombs in this game, which basically just lead to new areas at the end. Whereas pretty much all of them in Elden Ring main game were like optional entirely. I mean, these are optional areas, but if you want to see all the areas, you need to actually dig your way through them.
Yeah, because if you mainline through the main bosses, like the main game, you can miss a lot, right? In this, and like you said to me earlier as well, the catacombs in this are like 2-3 times the size of the
Yeah,
catacombs in
for
the other
sure.
one. I think they're not quite as difficult. I didn't find,
I,
you
I
know,
I was wondering if I was like, am I getting good at this, or or are these just a lot easier? To be fair, we were playing on like some press servers, and there were other people, like ghosts of other characters, and like messages from other people that were clearly on the same server as us for
yeah,
pre-release.
watch to your right and stuff like that,
Yeah,
which come
yeah,
in quite
definitely
clutch
had plenty of
sometimes.
messages. Very funny how I often read the message and still got hit up by the guy on my right while trying to lure them out or something. Yeah, yeah, but you know, I feel like most of the hidden paths in this game had already been uncovered for me, and as a result, I'm sure like 1 or 2 days after launch, most people will already have everything marked out for them. You know?
My point about the catacombs though is like I felt like some of the ones in the main game felt a little unfair with the trap placement and stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
very, very like thin hair's breadth of like timing you had to get through the boulders or whatever it is, or the chainsaw, like the saws or
Yeah,
whatever you're getting through. With this, you know, a lot of it's like spike ceilings and stuff like that,
yeah,
and there's like a second either side that, to make an error or whatever.
yeah.
You know, it felt a little more fair. And I'd say I don't know if it's because I've got a high level character or what, but I breezed through a lot of the bosses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple we'll get to that in a minute. Obviously, we won't spoil specifics, but there's a couple that absolutely nailed me. But a lot of them, I one tried them and just did them, and which is a bit of a shame because they're really cool designs as well. Like we can talk about the one from the trailer, right? There's that lion head, like dances a bit like a Chinese dragon.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool design for a boss, but
Mm-hmm.
I saw it for a minute and then it was dead.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I I I basically initiated an Elden Ring speedrun of my own, which isn't that fast compared to actual speedrunners. But I had to initiate my own speedrun on like midway through last week in order to get DLC ready pretty quickly, um, and I was going through it at like a shocking pace. I was like, oh my god, I am so fucking good at this game. I'm incredible. Like, couldn't believe it. But then as soon as I hit the DLC, when I hit the dancing lion, yeah, it just destroyed me. I was like, okay, I see.
You were probably quite under leveled compared to me. I think I was level like 130 or something when I took that on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I literally went back into the main game and just speed ran my way to like the big bosses like Rykard and Radahn and that, and just like just literally skipped every enemy except the boss. Got their runes leveled up, just running around the
Nice.
map, killing bosses. And I feel like, yeah, once I would gotten to the point where I'd killed the Elden Beast really easily, like second try. Uh, once I got to that point, the DLC started smoothing out significantly,
Hmm.
and I didn't feel like I was really struggling except for a handful of really tough bosses. The game definitely it has a smaller pool of like NPC characters that are in the game to chat to and interact with. But of course, those are also the characters that you summon for bosses. Because there are less bosses and there are fewer NPC interactions, you're more likely to have the opportunity to summon them all. So it feels
Hmm.
like there's plenty of like help with those fights, except for seemingly the toughest ones.
I do feel like as well. I'm not. I'm not sure if this is true, but I got the sense that you can influence them a bit more than you can in the main game.
Hmm.
Like I think the main game NPCs are along a set path, and I think depending on what you do and say with these ones, the outcome can be quite different. Again, I've got no proof of that. I just got the sense from the options you get during the conversations with them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wondered because we did have like a few optional dialogue options. I know that you had one dialogue option which I didn't have.
Hmm.
Perhaps because I'm not sure I met that character earlier on. But yeah, I'm not sure it actually ended up changing anything in the end. But
Right.
it's interesting. It's interesting because I want to know. Obviously, there are multiple endings to the main game. I am curious if there are going to be multiple endings to this. Obviously, we've only gone so far.
I feel like
Can't do
that
multiple in
point,
that time.
that conversation, maybe we came to it too late in the game, so like we
Hmm.
progressed to the next part before it could play out. I don't. Again, I'm trying not to spoil anything,
Yeah, of
but
course, spoiler-free discussion.
can you hear this bin lorry?
No,
Good. Right outside my house.
typical. But yeah, Yeah, no, as I said in my review as well, I wasn't envious of From Software to follow up Elden Ring with a big DLC expansion, especially with everything that it promised. Uh, I'm on the whole really impressed, but I will say that it is more Elden Ring as opposed to something like out of the box and interesting.
Yeah, it's a refinement of like on a smaller scale of what they did with the main game,
Yeah.
and then like even the enemy placement and stuff's really it's really thoughtful. I think like we were talking about them lion dudes later on. So these are just normal enemies you fight. I'm not spoiling any major bosses or anything, but later on they're quite tough, right? They'd lever you and they take some walloping. But I found there was spots where you could just cheese them from.
Mm-hmm.
There's platforms you can snipe them from, so they're intentionally placed. That like there's ways around the difficulty of it if anything frustrates you, except for the final boss.
Hmm.
We again we won't spoil who it is or anything, but I feel like it kind of lost a bit of its luster for me there because I don't feel like you can intuit when or where some of the attacks are going to come from. They just seem to rain on you
Yeah.
almost.
Uh,
Um,
the fact that it
bit
kills you so
frustrating.
quickly doesn't help, huh?
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what armor you're wearing or
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah, I started as I said, I did like a really fast speed run of this game to get ready for the DLC, and I was going through with the great sword, the heavy great sword, all strength, all the time, biggest armor possible. And yeah, at the end of the game, I was wearing the heaviest armor I'd found, which actually came from a late game DLC character. The biggest sword, literally maxed out my strength stat, which does actually continually increase your strength at a good level thanks to the new scaling system in the DLC. So I was really, really strong, massive defense, even had a talisman that boosted my defense based on my equip load, and etc. etc. Just keeps going. Still getting slapped. still
see,
get.
I'm just using mid armor so I can roll quicks like fairly
I
quick
still have
still.
mid roll.
Really?
Heaviest armor possible. Like
What the
literally
hell?
got all the
You're not
talismans to
fat
like boost my
rolling.
equip load and everything.
Right. Well, I'm mid rolling with like light armor on. I'm a dex build with Uchi and Rivers of Blood, and yeah, I mean it's like two big hits from that boss will kill me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like if I'm not at full health, then a combo. If it gets me in a combo, it's done.
Yeah, there's that optional boss though. I went from hating it to loving it. Like once
Yeah,
that was one of them like classic FromSoft moments where you can actually figure that boss out,
yeah,
and you can
absolutely.
figure out the roll timing and everything, and when to attack. And once you've got it, like beating it feels incredible.
Yeah, I
Uh,
really, really enjoyed that one for sure, for sure.
that's
And
a classic From Software fight. That one
yeah, as
is.
you said, when you first jump in, it's like, damn, this is a huge obstacle to get across. And then when you're like, I don't know, 20 fights deep, you're like, oh, hell, hold on though, hold on, I've got this.
Yeah, yeah. And then the only thing you get from it is like a spell. You can get you got a choice of two different spells you can get from that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of equipment in this that's unique as well. You got like great swords, which are katanas that scale on decks, which are pretty cool. There's reverse grip swords and poison bottles and beast claws and all sorts. I've
Yeah.
not really had much chance to experiment with any of them. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I haven't experimented with them much either because I've been like as I said, max strength stat, max.
Yeah,
But I,
my build isn't versatile enough to wield them properly yet. Is the
yeah,
problem?
we saw in the trailers that there was like a new like martial arts weapon style that's actually carried by Dryleaf Dane, who is like a relatively early NPC that you can encounter, and you can get his like his gear and weapon. It seems like this like martial arts style. I think it's called hand-to-hand combat in game. I think this new weapon style. I only found the one weapon for it, and I'm wondering where's the others. But it's also super interesting. I'm like, what's the gameplay going to feel like if I spec specifically into that?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's another cool thing about the DLC, right? Is you can go through this, get a load of new toys, go finish the main game, start New Game Plus, and go through it with a completely different experience. Which
Absolutely.
is really cool.
I mean, you could definitely, especially if you've got a decent build and you're willing to summon. As soon as you beat Moog, you can jump into the DLC. Like at any point that you've gotten to Moog, you could technically, I think Vare you meet just after you get into Limgrave in Elden Ring. He just wants you to kill Godric. Once you've killed Godric, you can do his little quest line in Liurnia of the Lakes, get the quick teleport to Mogwin Palace. So you could get there pretty early in the game. Whether you can beat Moog at that point is a different question. But yeah, like if those super experienced Elden Ring players that are like one bros or whatever, they will love this.
Did you see someone beat Elden Ring at Soul Level 1 with this screen flipped upside down the other day?
Upside down, huh?
Yep.
Okay, I mean, if you want, I mean, I'm just trying to beat it normally, my friend. Thought the dance mat was enough, Jesus.
It's a good place to end it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. On that note, Kirk, is it a good game? Would you buy Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree?
Yes. It's about £1 an hour entertainment value.
Yeah.
Which is
are those
good.
hours good hours?
They're very good hours. They're the best hours I've had this year in a game.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I leading up to launch the DLC, I was like, oh, I have to do another run to get ready for the DLC, and I wasn't asked, frankly. But the last like week playing it has just been nothing but Elden Ring, and I've been happy about it.
Yeah, it's like stepping back into it, like because it. Oh, sorry, I know we said we're ending it, but like, yeah. I think we've both got a bit of shared trauma from playing it originally because we had to write guides for it, right? And it was a hell of an undertaking. And we did it in a short amount of time. So it was a bit like, this again. But once I actually started playing it, it was like, this again.
Yeah.
You know, in a good way.
It's back. It was great. There's nothing quite like your first time through a Souls game, and I do feel like controversial. I feel like Elden Ring might be the best one.
Definitely is. Like in terms of like versatility and like different ways you can play it and how replayable it is. Because I reckon I'd still find stuff I hadn't seen if I played it through again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm positive there are catacombs and quest lines that I just never noticed were even there.
What a game. What a team.
Yeah, fantastic. And more of that for me, no bad thing. That's great. I love this.
Miyazaki, we love you.
Thanks, Miyazaki. Please come on our podcast. Thank you very much for listening.